There are some conversations that brand themselves into your memory, words that echo long after they're spoken, growing louder with time rather than fading away. I have one such conversation that plays on repeat in my mind. A brief exchange, casual in the moment, that became the heaviest promise I never knew I was making. My name is Ryan, I'm 29, and this story begins on a humid summer night in Georgia, with cicadas singing in the pines and fireflies rising from the tall grass that bordered Marcus's backyard. We were sitting on his back porch, 2 beers deep, watching the sunset paint the sky in watercolor strokes of orange and pink. It was the kind of perfect southern evening that feels suspended in time, warm but not stifling. Quiet, but alive with sound, the air heavy with the scent of magnolias and freshly cut grass. Marcus and I had known each other since 3rd grade, when his family moved in 3 houses down from mine. 20 years of friendship packed with inside jokes, shared secrets, double dates, bad decisions, and unwavering loyalty. He was the brother I never had, bound not by blood, but by something that felt equally permanent. That night was supposed to be a simple send-off before his National Guard unit deployed to the Middle East. Nothing dramatic, just 2 friends sharing beers and memories before a temporary separation. We'd already done the bigger party the weekend before, with all our friends and family gathering in this same backyard for barbecue and good-natured, teasing about how the military might finally teach Marcus some discipline. His mother had hovered at the edges of that gathering, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. Eleanor was a quiet, gentle woman who'd raised Marcus alone after his father walked out when he was 4. She'd worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, somehow never missing a single one of his baseball games, despite her exhausting schedule. The bond between them was something special, not just mother and son, but best friends, confidants, each other's strongest supporters. "Mom's taking this deployment pretty hard," Marcus said, breaking the comfortable silence between us. He was peeling the label from his beer bottle, a nervous habit he'd had since our first stolen Budweisers at 16. "She'll be okay," I assured him. "Eleanor's tough. And it's only 9 months, right?" He nodded, still focused on the label. "Yeah, should be. Unless things change. But that's the plan." We fell silent again, listening to the distant rumble of thunder. A summer storm was building on the horizon, but it was still miles away, more sound and light than immediate threat. "Hey Ryan," Marcus said suddenly, his voice casual, but with an undercurrent I didn't recognize at the time. "If anything happens, if I don't make it back," I cut him off with a laugh, uncomfortable with the direction the conversation was heading. "Dude, stop. Nothing's going to happen. You're basically going to be pushing papers on a base somewhere." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes, much like his mother's smile at the party. "Probably. But humor me for a second, okay?" I took another swig of beer and gestured for him to continue, already formulating jokes to lighten whatever was coming next. "If I'm not around, will you look after my mom? She won't ask for help, you know how she is. But she shouldn't be alone." The request hung in the warm air between us, more serious than anything we'd discussed in years. I shifted in my seat, the wooden chair suddenly uncomfortable. "You're crazy. Stop it," I said, forcing a laugh. "You'll be back before she even has time to miss you. Besides, Eleanor's got plenty of people who care about her. She's not going to be alone." Marcus didn't laugh. He looked out across the yard, his profile sharp against the deepening twilight. "She has acquaintances, church friends, colleagues. But since Grandma passed, I'm all the family she has left. Just promise me you'll check on her. Regularly, not just once after the funeral." "There's not going to be a funeral," I insisted, uncomfortable with his persistence. "Jesus, Marcus, way to be morbid. You're coming back." He turned to look at me directly, his expression more serious than I'd ever seen it. For a moment, he looked startlingly like his mother, the same determined set to his jaw, the same quiet intensity in his eyes. "Ryan, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I just need to know she'll have someone, if I can't be that person. Someone who actually cares, not just feels obligated. Will you promise me that?" I remember feeling a flash of irritation at his insistence, at the way he was darkening our last evening together with hypothetical scenarios that wouldn't happen. We were supposed to be reminiscing about old times, making plans for his return, keeping things light. "Fine, I promise," I said finally, raising my beer bottle in a mock toast. "If you don't come back, which you will, I'll check on Eleanor. Happy now. Can we talk about something else?" Relief softened his features. "Thanks, man. That's all I needed to hear. The tension broken, we moved on to lighter topics, remembering the time we tried to jump his dad's old motorcycle over a creek, and both ended up with poison ivy in unfortunate places. The disastrous double date to junior prom, where both our dates ended up leaving together. The summer we built a treehouse, so rickety, his mother forbade us from climbing higher than the third branch. By the time the distant storm finally reached us, sending fat raindrops pattering on the porch roof, we were laughing like we had as kids, the serious moment seemingly forgotten. As I was leaving, the rain now falling in sheets, Marcus hugged me, something we rarely did, usually defaulting to awkward shoulder slaps or fist bumps instead. It was a quick, fierce embrace, over almost before I registered it happening. "Take care of yourself," I said, dashing through the downpour toward my truck. "You too," he called after me. "And don't forget what you promised." I waved without turning around, already focused on not slipping in the sudden mud. "I won't. See you in 9 months." 3 days later, I stood at the airport with Eleanor, watching Marcus's plane disappear into the clouds. She gripped my hand tightly as we walked back to the parking garage, but didn't cry until she was sitting in her car, keys in the ignition but engine still off. "He'll be fine," I told her, awkwardly patting her shoulder through the open window. "Marcus is smart. They'll probably keep him far from any action." She nodded, wiping her eyes with the tissue I'd handed her. "I know. I'm just being a mother. We always prepare for the worst while hoping for the best." "He made me promise to check on you," I admitted, trying to make her smile. "Like you're some helpless damsel instead of the woman who once chased off those high school seniors with nothing but a garden hose." "It worked." She laughed, a watery sound, but genuine. "That boy. Always thinking he needs to take care of everyone else." She straightened her shoulders, visibly composing herself. "Well, you tell him when you write that I'm perfectly fine, and he should focus on keeping himself safe." "Yes, ma'am," I replied with a mock salute. We spoke regularly over the following months, quick text exchanges, occasional dinners when I'd bring takeout from her favorite Thai place, Sunday afternoons when I'd help with small repairs around her house. Not out of obligation to Marcus, but because I genuinely enjoyed Eleanor's company. She was funny and wise, with stories about Marcus's childhood that he'd never shared with me. 5 months into his deployment, the video calls with Marcus became less frequent. "Communications are spotty," he explained during one pixelated conversation. "We're moving around more than expected. Don't worry if you don't hear from me for a while." Eleanor worried anyway, of course. But she channeled her anxiety into care packages filled with homemade cookies, paperback novels, socks, and small comforts from home. I often helped her pack these, carefully fitting everything into flat tray boxes, writing notes on the Georgia Bulldog's stationery Marcus had loved since childhood. 2 weeks before Christmas, with Marcus's deployment more than halfway complete, a winter storm hit our town unexpectedly. Schools closed, roads iced over, and the power went out in several neighborhoods, including Eleanor's. I called to check on her. "I'm fine," she insisted. "I've got candles, blankets, and plenty of food. Don't risk the roads, Ryan." But I remembered my promise to Marcus. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I told her. "Might take longer with the ice, but I'm coming." The drive was treacherous, my truck sliding on roads not designed for winter weather. But I made it, carrying a portable heater, extra batteries, and groceries to her front door. She scolded me for taking the risk, even as she helped me unpack the supplies. We spent the evening playing cards by candlelight, bundled in blankets, sharing stories about Marcus and speculating about when he might be home. "Should be around Easter," I said confidently. "Just a few more months." Eleanor nodded, her face golden in the flickering light. "I'm making him a proper Easter dinner when he gets back. Ham, scalloped potatoes, that green bean casserole he pretends to hate but always takes seconds of. Don't forget the coconut cake," I added, grinning. "He'd disown you if there's no coconut cake." "As if I could forget his favorite," she laughed. I left the next morning once power was restored, promising to return soon to fix a loose railing on her front steps. She hugged me at the door, the same quick, fierce embrace I'd received from Marcus the night before he left. "You're a good boy, Ryan," she said warmly. "Marcus is lucky to have you as a friend." 3 days later, on a morning so beautiful, it seemed impossible that ice had covered everything just days before, 2 uniformed officers appeared at Eleanor's door. Marcus's convoy had been hit by an IED. There were no survivors. Just like that, The promise I'd dismissed as unnecessary, as morbid and dramatic, became the most important commitment of my life. And the friend who'd asked me to make it would never know I was keeping it. 1,237 days have passed since those officers appeared at Eleanor's door. 3 years, 4 months, and 12 days of keeping a promise I once thought would never need to be kept. I've learned many things in that time. How grief transforms, but never truly leaves. How a person can be simultaneously present and absent. How the smallest kindnesses can sustain someone through the darkest moments. Most of all, I've learned about promises, their weight, their impact, their enduring power long after the words themselves have faded into memory. Eleanor still lives in the same house, though I've urged her to consider something smaller, easier to maintain. This is where Marcus grew up, she always says. His height marks are still penciled on the kitchen doorframe. His fingerprints are probably still on the attic window he broke playing indoor baseball during that rainstorm. I can't leave him behind. So instead of moving her, I moved closer, renting the small house, just 2 doors down, that came available last year. Close enough to check on her daily, far enough to maintain our independent lives. It's a balance we've worked to establish, this relationship that neither of us expected to have. Every Sunday, we have dinner together. Sometimes at her house, where she still occasionally sets a third place at the table before catching herself. Sometimes at my place, where photos of Marcus adorn the walls alongside my own family pictures. Sometimes at the small diner in town, where Marcus used to order chocolate chip pancakes well into adulthood, much to the amusement of the longtime waitresses who'd known him since he was in diapers. We talk about him freely, though not always easily. The first year, his name would catch in our throats, the pain still too raw to navigate smoothly. Now, he slips into conversation, naturally, a memory, a joke he would have made, the way he would have reacted to the latest Marvel movie or political scandal. Marcus would have loved this, one of us will say, and the other will nod. And for a moment he exists again in the space between our shared memories. I've kept my promise in practical ways, mowing Eleanor's lawn, fixing leaky faucets, driving her to doctor's appointments, making sure her pantry stays stocked. But the true keeping of the promise has been in the less tangible moments, sitting beside her on difficult anniversaries, looking through old photo albums, listening to the same stories about Marcus's childhood, without ever letting on that I've heard them before. What Marcus couldn't have known, what I didn't know myself, that night on the porch, was how much I would come to need Eleanor too, how her quiet strength would help me through my own grief, how her resilience would inspire me when my own life hit unexpected obstacles, how her maternal warmth would fill gaps I hadn't recognized in my own experience. We've formed a family of sorts, bound by absence as much as presence, not replacing what was lost, but creating something new from the fragments that remained. Last month marked the 4th Christmas without Marcus. In the early years, the holidays were almost unbearable, too full of traditions he'd been central to, too marked by his empty chair at the table. Eleanor would put on a brave face, decorating the tree with the same ornaments she'd collected throughout Marcus's life, baking his favorite cookies, maintaining the rituals while the joy had leached out of them. This year felt different. Still sad, still incomplete, but with genuine moments of warmth breaking through the sorrow. We invited neighbors who had no family nearby, filled the house with noise and life, told stories about Marcus that produced laughter instead of tears. After everyone had gone, as we washed dishes side by side in comfortable silence, Eleanor suddenly put down the plate she was drying. He knew, she said quietly. Marcus. He knew he wasn't coming back. I stopped scrubbing the pot in my hands, unsure how to respond. What makes you say that? She reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a folded piece of paper, edges soft from frequent handling. This was in the last package he sent me. It arrived 3 days after we got the news. She handed it to me, her hands steady but her eyes full of a complicated mixture of pain and peace. I unfolded the letter carefully, recognizing Marcus's distinctive handwriting, immediately slightly messy but deliberate, pressing hard enough into the paper that you could feel the indentations on the reverse side. Mom, if you're reading this, then I guess I was right about some things after all. Don't be too sad. Had a good run, and every bit of happiness in my life came from you. I've asked Ryan to look after you. He said I was being dramatic, classic Ryan, but he promised anyway. Let him help you, even when you think you don't need it. He needs it as much as you do. There's a letter for him too, in the box under my bed, with Dad's old watch, And my baseball cards. Make sure he gets it, but not right away. Give it to him when the time feels right. You'll know when. I love you more than anyone has ever loved anything. That's not exaggeration, it's just math. Your son always. Marcus. I refolded the letter with hands that weren't quite steady, swallowing hard against the lump in my throat. He knew I agreed quietly. Eleanor took the letter back, returning it to her pocket. He made me promise to live fully, not just exist. It took me a long time to understand what he meant by that. Some days I'm still figuring it out. We finished the dishes in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. As I was leaving, she stopped me at the door. "It's time you had this," she said, pressing a sealed envelope into my hand. "The letter he mentioned. I've been waiting for the right moment, and tonight feels like it." I stood on her porch long after she closed the door, staring at my name written in Marcus's handwriting, uncertain if I was ready to hear his voice so clearly again after all this time. Finally, I slipped the envelope into my jacket pocket and walked the short distance to my own house. It wasn't until well past midnight, sitting alone in my quiet living room with only a small lamp casting shadows across the walls, that I found the courage to open it. "Ryan, if Mom followed instructions, and when has she not? You're getting this letter sometime after I'm gone. Not immediately, that would be too cruel to both of you. But eventually, when the sharpest edges of grief have dulled a bit. First, thank you for keeping your promise. I know you have, because that's who you are, the guy who shows up, who follows through, who stands by his word, even when it's inconvenient or painful. It's why I asked you and not someone else. Second, I wasn't being paranoid or dramatic that night on the porch. I had a dream the week before deployment, so vivid it felt more like a visitation. My dad was there, weird, right? Telling me to get my affairs in order. I've never been one for supernatural stuff, but it felt real in a way I can't explain. So I listened. I've had a good life, Ryan. Short, maybe, by most standards, but good. Rich in the ways that matter. I got to grow up with the world's best mom and the world's best friend. Not many people can say that. Which brings me to the real point of this letter. I need you to do something else for me, beyond checking on Mom. I need you to live the life I don't get to finish. Not literally, I don't expect you to fulfill my specific dreams, or anything weird like that. But live fully. Take risks. Tell people you love them while they can still hear you. Don't postpone joy, thinking there will always be more time. There won't always be more time. That's the one thing I've learned for certain. Remember when we were kids and made that blood oath to be best friends forever? Mom was so mad about the kitchen knife we used I was grounded for a week. Turns out forever is shorter than we thought. But I meant it then, and I mean it now. You're my brother in every way that matters. Take care of yourself. Take care of Mom. And somewhere down the road, when you're ready, maybe take care of someone else to build your own family. Carry forward your own legacy. Just remember to tell them about your friend Marcus, who made you promise to look after his mom one summer night, thinking you were humoring him when you agreed. You were always the better of us, though you never saw it that way. Until we meet again, if that's a thing, Marcus P. I know you still have my signed Chipper Jones baseball. I'm haunting you for that, specifically. I read the letter 3 times through tears that alternated between grief and unexpected laughter at that final line so perfectly. Quintessentially Marcus. Then I carefully refolded it and placed it in the wooden box where I keep my most important possessions. My grandfather's pocket watch. My college diploma. The ticket stub from the first Braves game my father ever took me to. That night, I dreamed of Marcus. We were sitting on his porch again, fireflies rising from the tall grass, cold beers sweating in our hands. But in the dream, I answered differently when he asked me to look after Eleanor. "I promise," I said, meeting his gaze directly. "And it's not crazy to ask. I'll be there for her, no matter what happens." Dream Marcus smiled, relieved in a way that real-life Marcus hadn't been able to fully express. "I know you will, brother. I know you will." I woke with tears on my face, but a curious sense of peace in my heart. The promise I'd dismissed as unnecessary had become the defining commitment of my adult life. Not a burden, but a gift. A way to keep Marcus present in a world that continued spinning without him. The following Sunday, as Eleanor and I walked back from church together, she linked her arm through me in a gesture that had become familiar over the years. "I'm thinking of volunteering at the children's hospital," she said casually. "They need people to rock the NICU babies when parents can't be there. Feels like a good use of my retirement." I smiled, recognizing another step in her journey toward living fully, rather than just existing. I think that's a great idea. Those babies would be lucky to have you. She squeezed my arm. And afterward, you could pick me up and we could try that new pizza place Marcus would have loved. The one with the ridiculous toppings. Pineapple and jalapeno, his favorite abomination. I laughed, remembering how he'd defended the controversial combination to anyone who would listen. We'll order it in his honor, she decided, and hate every bite. Deal, I agreed. These are the moments I cherish. Now the small ways we keep Marcus alive between us. The gradual transformation of grief into something that can coexist with joy. The quiet acknowledgement that life continues, even when it's forever changed. Last week, I sat alone on my front porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in watercolor strokes of orange and pink, so similar to that evening with Marcus 4 years ago. The cicadas were singing in the pines again, fireflies rising from the tall grass that bordered my small yard. I closed my eyes, feeling the warm summer air against my skin, and whispered into the gathering dusk, "I'm keeping my promise, Marcus, every day." And somewhere in the chirp of crickets, the rustle of leaves, the distant laughter of neighborhood children playing before dinner, I could almost hear his response. "I know you are, brother. I know you are." In the quiet moments, when no one else is around to see, I still cry for my friend, for all he lost, all he never got to experience, all the years that should have been his. Silent tears that fall without sound, private grief that I carry in parallel with the public strength Eleanor needs from me. But I've learned that grief and gratitude can exist side by side. Sorrow and purpose. Loss and love. Most of all, I've learned the power of a promise, how the words we speak casually in one moment can become the foundation we build our lives upon in the next. When Marcus asked me to look after his mother if something happened to him, I thought he was being needlessly morbid, unnecessarily cautious. "You're crazy. Stop it," I had said. But he wasn't crazy. He was preparing both of us, for a future he somehow sensed was coming, even if he couldn't articulate why. And now, I keep that promise. I care for Eleanor, and I cry in silence not every day anymore, but still, sometimes, when the weight of absence becomes temporarily unbearable, then I dry my tears, stand up straighter, and continue the work of keeping my word to the friend who knew to ask while there was still time. Narrated by Ryan, 29, who lost his childhood friend, Marcus.